Imagine standing up from your favorite chair, feeling steady, confident, and ready to move, without hesitation, without fear, without grabbing onto the nearest wall or countertop. Now imagine the opposite. You stand, and the room tilts slightly. Your legs wobble. Your hands instinctively reach out for support. And somewhere inside, a small voice whispers, "You're not as steady as you used to be." That's exactly what happened to Harold, a 68-year-old former firefighter from Ohio. For most of his life, Harold had been fearless. Climbing ladders, carrying heavy gear, balance was something he never had to think about. But after retirement, something changed. Simple things, stepping off a curb, reaching for a box on a shelf, suddenly felt uncertain. At first, Harold laughed it off. Just getting older, he told himself. But inside, the fear was growing. Fear of falling. Fear of losing his independence. Fear of becoming a burden to his family. And he's not alone. After age 60, balance naturally declines, not because we're broken, but because we stop training it. Muscles weaken. Reflexes slow. Tiny adjustments, once automatic, become harder to make. But here's the good news. Balance isn't lost forever. It can be rebuilt, often faster and easier than you think. Today, I'm going to show you how just 5 minutes a day can transform your balance, your confidence, and your freedom. Simple, real-world exercises you can do at home. No fancy equipment, no complicated routines. And the best part? Harold's story proves that it's never too late. In just a few weeks, he went from feeling wobbly and worried to walking taller, steadier, and freer than he had in years. If you feel like your balance isn't what it used to be, stay with me. Because your strongest, steadiest steps might still be ahead of you, and they can start today. When Harold first noticed his balance slipping away, he thought it was just bad luck or maybe a little clumsiness. But what he didn't realize, and what most people don't know, is that losing balance after 60 is completely normal, but not completely unavoidable. The body changes in ways that aren't always visible but have a powerful impact on stability. First, muscle loss begins to accelerate. By the time we reach 60, the muscles that help us stand tall, shift our weight, and correct ourselves after a stumble begin to shrink if we're not actively using them. The legs, the hips, the core, they all lose strength, making every movement a little less controlled, a little less certain. Next comes joint stiffness. Over the years, our hips, knees, and ankles lose some of their natural flexibility. Without good joint mobility, even small shifts in terrain, a crack in the sidewalk, a change in slope, become harder to adjust to quickly. Another silent enemy is slower reflexes. When Harold was younger, if he tripped or slipped, his body reacted instantly. A quick step, a swing of the arm, and he recovered without thinking. But after 60, those automatic reactions slow down. The brain still sends the right signals, but they don't travel quite as fast. There's also changes in the inner ear, the body's built-in balance center. Tiny structures inside the ear help us sense movement and orientation. Over time, they can deteriorate, making it harder to detect subtle shifts and respond quickly enough. And finally, there's the simple truth that fear itself can erode balance. After a stumble or a near fall, we instinctively become more cautious, more stiff, more hesitant, and ironically, that stiffness makes balance even harder. Harold learned all of this the hard way. But once he understood why his balance was changing, he realized he wasn't broken. He wasn't helpless. He just needed to approach his body with a little more care, a little more intention, and most importantly, with the belief that improvement was still possible. And he wasn't about to waste another day worrying. He was ready to act. But first, he had to confront a dangerous misconception, one that keeps far too many people trapped in a cycle of declining balance and fear. One of the biggest mistakes Harold made, and he's not alone, was believing that balance would just take care of itself. After all, balance is something we're born with, right? Something that just stays with us? Unfortunately, that's not how the body works. What Harold learned, and what so many people over 60 discovered too late, is that balance is a skill. Just like strength, just like flexibility, balance needs regular, active training to stay sharp. Without intentional practice, balance skills slowly fade away, almost without us noticing. At first, it's little things, taking an extra second to recover after tripping on the edge of a rug, feeling nervous stepping down from a curb, reaching for a wall when getting out of the shower. Over time, these small moments add up, and without realizing it, our world becomes smaller. We walk less. We avoid uneven sidewalks. We say no to trips, to walks in the park, to family outings. Not because we can't move, but because we don't trust ourselves to stay upright. Harold realized that he had spent years exercising his heart, his arms, even his legs, but he had never once thought about exercising his balance. The good news is that balance training doesn't require special equipment, expensive classes, or hours of effort. It only takes a few focused minutes each day, and it can make an incredible difference. When Harold started practicing specific balance exercises, he felt awkward at first. His muscles trembled. His feet wobbled. But within a few weeks, something amazing happened. He started trusting his body again. He stood taller. He walked with more confidence. He moved through his day without the silent fear that used to follow him like a shadow. And once Harold understood the importance of training his balance directly, he uncovered another major mistake he had been making, a mistake that almost everyone assumes without question. After Harold started training his balance, he felt a wave of hope he hadn't known in a long time. But there was still something bothering him. He remembered how strong he had been in his younger days, lifting heavy gear, climbing ladders, and he couldn't understand how someone once so powerful could now feel so unsteady on simple walks. That's when his physical therapist explained a critical truth. Strength and balance are connected, but they are not the same thing. Having strong muscles is important. It gives your body the tools to move. But balance is about something more subtle: coordination, timing, body awareness, and the ability to react quickly to changes. You can have strong legs and still stumble if your balance system isn't trained. You can have powerful arms and still feel insecure stepping onto an uneven path. Harold realized that during his firefighter years, he wasn't just strong, he was active, dynamic, always challenging his balance naturally through his work. But after retirement, although he kept some strength, he stopped challenging his body's ability to adapt and correct itself. He stopped practicing the fine-tuned skills that allowed him to stay upright without thinking. That gap between strength and balance widened slowly over time until it showed up as hesitations, stumbles, and silent fear. It's a mistake almost everyone makes. We assume that lifting weights or walking regularly is enough to protect us from falls. But without direct balance training, the risk remains quietly growing year after year. Once Harold understood the difference, he felt empowered. He wasn't weak. He wasn't broken. He simply needed to train his body in a smarter way, focusing on movements that reconnected his strength with his ability to stay centered and controlled. And that's exactly what he set out to do, starting with a few minutes each day and exercises that almost anyone can master, even from the comfort of their own living room. Harold's first real step toward reclaiming his balance wasn't complicated. It didn't involve fancy equipment, special shoes, or hours of grueling workouts. It started with something incredibly simple: standing still, but standing smart. His therapist introduced him to a basic, powerful exercise called the standing balance drill. And even though it seemed almost too simple at first, it quickly became the foundation of Harold's daily routine and his new confidence. Here's how it works. Harold would stand next to a sturdy chair or countertop for support, just in case he needed it. He would plant his feet hip-width apart, distribute his weight evenly, and focus on standing tall, imagining a string pulling the crown of his head gently toward the ceiling. Then, slowly, he would lift one foot just an inch off the ground. Not high, not exaggerated, just enough to shift the responsibility fully onto his standing leg. He would hold the position for as long as he could, breathing calmly, keeping his body upright without leaning or twisting. At first, Harold could barely hold the position for 5 seconds without wobbling. His ankle muscles trembled. His core tightened in a way he hadn't felt in years. But each day, he tried again. First 5 seconds, then 8, then 10. Gradually, his stability grew. After he mastered standing for about 20 seconds, Harold added a gentle challenge: He would close his eyes for a few moments while balancing, removing visual cues and forcing his body to rely on inner sensations of position and movement. He also practiced shifting his weight slowly from one foot to the other, mimicking the tiny adjustments the body needs to make when walking on uneven ground. What Harold discovered through this simple drill was transformative. Balance wasn't about brute strength. It was about awareness. It was about training the nervous system to react faster, adjust quicker, and trust itself again. He began to notice changes even outside of practice. He stood taller when waiting in line at the store. He navigated crowded sidewalks with more ease. He felt a new quiet confidence growing inside him, a feeling he hadn't had in years. And once he had laid the foundation with the standing balance drill, Harold was ready to move, to take actual steps forward, retraining his balance dynamically. With the foundation of standing balance in place, Harold was ready for the next challenge, learning to control his balance while moving step by careful step. His therapist introduced him to a simple but highly effective drill called the heel-to-toe walk, sometimes known as a tandem walk. It might look easy from the outside, but for someone rebuilding their balance, it's a powerful exercise that demands focus, strength, and coordination. Here's how Harold practiced it. He would find a straight, clear hallway at home. Standing tall, he would take a step forward by placing the heel of his front foot directly in front of the toes of his back foot, almost like walking on an invisible tightrope. He kept his gaze forward, not down at his feet, using a point in front of him to guide his posture. He moved slowly, deliberately, making sure each foot made full, steady contact before shifting his weight. If he wobbled, and in the beginning, he would simply pause, regain his posture, and continue. At first, Harold could only manage about 5 steps before losing his line. His feet felt clumsy. His core muscles trembled with the effort of maintaining alignment. But like everything else, progress came with patience. Day by day, Harold's steps grew steadier. He could walk 10 steps without wobbling, then 15, then across the entire hallway without needing to grab the wall. The heel-to-toe walk retrained Harold's entire body to work together again. His ankles became quicker at adjusting. His hips learned to shift smoothly. His eyes, head, and spine coordinated naturally. One of the biggest victories Harold noticed wasn't just in practice sessions, it was during everyday life. Stepping off a curb no longer made his heart race. Navigating crowded sidewalks became smoother, safer, almost automatic. It's amazing how a few focused minutes each day, walking slowly and deliberately, can translate into confidence that carries through every movement you make. Harold realized that balance wasn't just something you practiced during drills. It was something you built into the way you lived, the way you moved, the way you trusted your body again. And now that his steps were growing stronger, it was time for Harold to challenge his balance even further by standing still on just one leg. With each passing day, Harold's confidence grew. Standing taller, walking steadier, feeling more connected to his body. But he knew real-world balance isn't just about moving carefully in a straight line. It's about recovering quickly when something unexpected happens, a sudden bump, a loose stone, an uneven surface. To prepare for those real-life moments, Harold's therapist introduced him to one of the simplest, yet most powerful exercises, the single leg stand. The idea was simple. Stand on one foot and stay balanced as long as possible. But executing it well required concentration, strength, and awareness. Harold began by standing next to a sturdy counter for safety. He planted one foot firmly into the ground, lifted the opposite foot just a few inches off the floor, and held the position. His arms stretched slightly out for balance, and his eyes focused on a still point in front of him. At first, Harold could barely hold the position for 6 seconds before his free foot tapped the ground for support. His ankles wobbled. His hips shifted. His whole body worked overtime just to stay upright. But, as always, Harold stayed patient. Each day, he practiced. 6 seconds became 8, then 10, then 15. Gradually, he could stand for 30 seconds on one leg without needing the counter at all. To make it harder, Harold later added simple challenges, turning his head side to side while standing, or lightly closing his eyes for a moment to train his body's internal balance sensors. The single leg stand rebuilt critical stabilizing muscles deep in Harold's ankles, knees, hips, and core, the muscles responsible for quick reactions when life throws surprises his way. And beyond the physical strength, something even more important grew inside him: trust. Trust that his body would catch him if he stumbled. Trust that he could step confidently into new places without fear holding him back. Harold noticed it during small moments, reaching for a book on a high shelf without hesitation, stepping into the back of a pickup truck to help his grandson without overthinking. Balance, he realized, wasn't just about staying upright. It was about freedom, the freedom to live fully, without second-guessing every move. With this new strength under his belt, Harold was ready for one final challenge, an exercise that combined reach, stretch, and dynamic control into one powerful practice. With his standing balance, walking control, and one-leg stability improving every day, Harold felt a renewed sense of power in his body. But his therapist had one final exercise to teach him, one that mimicked the real-life movements that so often challenge balance without warning. It was called the step and reach, and it quickly became Harold's favorite part of his routine. The concept was simple: combine stepping, stretching, and maintaining balance all in one flowing movement. Here's how Harold practiced it. Standing tall near a wall or sturdy chair for support, he would take a small step forward with one foot. Then, while keeping his weight centered and his posture tall, he would reach forward with the opposite hand, as if trying to grab an object just out of reach. After holding that stretched position for a moment, he would bring his hand back, step back to his starting position, and repeat on the other side. The secret was in the control. Harold didn't rush through the movement. He focused on keeping his hips level, his knees soft, his core engaged. Every step and every reach challenged his brain and body to work together, predicting shifts in weight, adjusting muscle tension, and maintaining focus. At first, Harold struggled. Reaching too far would throw him off balance. Stepping too quickly would cause his posture to collapse. But with practice, his body learned. He became more agile, quicker to adjust, steadier under pressure. Beyond the drill itself, Harold noticed how the benefits carried into everyday activities. Stepping into the bathtub, bending down to tie a shoe, reaching for a dish on a high shelf, all became smoother, safer, more confident. The step and reach wasn't about perfection. It was about adaptability, training the body to move naturally and safely through unpredictable real-world movements. By practicing stepping and reaching with balance and control, Harold prepared himself not just for the good days, but for the unexpected ones too: the uneven sidewalks, the crowded grocery stores, the quick movements life demands without warning. And as he finished each daily session, Harold stood a little taller, breathed a little deeper, and smiled. Because for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel fragile. He felt powerful. And now it was time for Harold, and for you, to see the bigger picture. Because the real journey wasn't just about exercises. It was about reclaiming a life filled with freedom, strength, and joy. If you're still here with me, it tells me something incredible about you. It tells me that you're not someone who gives up. It tells me that you still believe in your strength, your freedom, and your future. Today, you walked beside Harold, a man who once feared that losing his balance meant losing his life as he knew it. You saw how he struggled, how he questioned, how he worried about the silent risks of falling, of needing help, of losing the independence he had always valued so deeply. But more importantly, you saw how Harold chose to fight back. Not with giant leaps, not with overnight miracles, but with small, steady steps. 5 minutes a day, one exercise at a time, one small victory at a time. You learned today that balance isn't something that just slips away forever. It's a living, breathing skill, one you can rebuild, one you can strengthen, no matter your age, no matter your past. Imagine yourself 6 months from now, standing from your chair without wobbling, walking through a busy store without a second thought, dancing a little at your granddaughter's wedding, living your life not with fear, but with pride, strength, and joy. That future isn't just possible. It's waiting for you. And the best part? You've already taken the first step by being here, by learning, by believing that your story isn't over. So if this message touched you, if you feel even a spark of hope rising inside, I invite you to keep going with us. Subscribe to this channel for real, practical advice every week, not false promises, but real strategies that work. Like this video if it gave you even one idea to strengthen your life. And leave a comment below. Share your journey, your fears, your triumphs. Because your story might be the very light someone else needs to find their way. You deserve to move with freedom. You deserve to live without fear. You deserve to write a new chapter filled with strength, laughter, and new memories. The best years of your life are not behind you. They are still out there, waiting, shining, ready to be lived. And today, you took the first strong, steady step toward them.